So, the best book I've ever read on managing your energy as an empath, it's called Thriving as an Empath. So, today I'm diving into the best book that I've read on managing your energy as an empath. And if you're a sensitive person or you have a loved one looking for guidance, this video is for you. If you're feeling overwhelmed as an empath or highly sensitive person and you cannot figure out how to manage your energy levels and live a more of a balanced life, I promise you I've been there. And really, for the longest time, I thought that in order to stop feeling overwhelmed by being so sensitive, that I needed to shut myself off, isolate, or just suppress my emotions. But I will tell you, it was really hard. The truth is that just made everything worse for me. And what I've learned through my own journey and working with a lot of other sensitive, empathic people, that being sensitive is a gift. And once we learn how to use our energy, it can become one of our biggest and most delightful strengths. So one of the big reasons that I love this book so much is that Dr. Judith Orloff she's an expert in the field of psychiatry. So she's a medical doctor, and she's got a beautiful personal journey of really having to live her life as a doctor and as a sensitive, empathic person. And I think that's really what makes this book stand out in the field. And she's written, I think, 8 or 9 books altogether. So what she does is she combines her professional knowledge with practical, everyday advice just for the average empathic, sensitive person. And what she does is she offers a really comprehensive guide for us to really live in this is a crazy world, y'all. And 7 years ago, when I was really looking into this, I was super overwhelmed. I've always been a sensitive person, always got made fun of for being a sensitive person, and I just think that people just didn't know any better. And I honestly thought something was wrong with me, and there might be, I don't know, but this actually is one of the best books. And one of the things I love and appreciate about this book is it's not just based on research and that's it, but her own personal experiences as a psychiatrist and a sensitive person. So she has to balance both of those parts of her life. And she really shares her own struggles, but she also shares her own self-care practices. And some of them might seem a little unconventional, but I'm going with them, and they have really worked for me. And she also teaches these principles and practices to not only her patients, but her students. So I am one of her students, and I've had a couple of her courses. And she talks about how we can learn to embrace our sensitivity, our makeup, while setting things like loving boundaries and protecting our own sensitive energy. And like I said, as somebody who has gone through her courses, she is the real deal. She's very relatable, very practical, and she's really easy to connect with. And it's easy to apply some of these practices in my own life. And actually, I will say I probably apply about 90% of them in my life. About 10% of them don't really apply to my current situation, but they're on the back burner just in case. So Dr. Orloff, she's incredibly relatable because she talks about hot topics such as sensory overload, which I have struggled with for all my life, and I'm 53, so I've struggled with this forever, it feels like. And things like overwhelm, and how we as empaths and helpers, there's a bit of a codependent pattern in some of us. And we take on so much that it's at the expense of our own well-being. So what she does, what I love about her work, is that she balances her research with science, especially in this particular book, such as like talking about the mirror neuron system. If you haven't heard of that, I'm going to be doing another video on it, but it's a part of the brain that is responsible for compassion and is hyperactive. It's a hyperactive part of the brain, this mirror neuron system, and that can lead to burnout. So it's, yes, we can feel everybody's intense emotions and we get overwhelmed by it. So the next reason I love this book is the structure of the book. So unlike a lot of other books, Thriving as an Empath is structured to give you a daily dose of inspiration and a bit of like problem solving and intention setting. And it's all like a day on a page. So it's kind of like, the daily devotionals. It's kind of set up in a similar way. And she gives you suggestions on how to move forward, not just like, oh, here's your problem, but it's like, here's how to solve it or work through it. Here's a couple of suggestions, try them on for size. So again, it's on one page a day. It's very doable. And here's a couple of examples that I want to give. She talks about the power of the seasons and how they can affect us. Like I looked at this book and most of my little tags are during the winter months because that's just when I struggle. During the winter months, it's not as light outside. Even though I live in Texas, we don't get as much sunlight. I cannot imagine living any farther north than I do now. I don't know what life would be like. She also talks about the summer solstice, the equinox, and she has some meditations to accompany them. And I've based a lot of my meditations that I create on this channel on the meditations that she suggests. So check those out if you have a chance. She talks about, which I love, the phases of the moon and how they affect us, because we all know they do. And she does give a few meditations and some self-care practices around that. She also talks about the elements of earth, fire, air, and water. And then she'll give activities around these elements every once in a while that can energize you or can change or balance out the energy. For instance, water, she talks about water and how like it is a cleansing feeling. Of course, like taking a shower, taking a bath, or going for a summer swim. It just feels amazing. Okay. She talks about how the earth is grounding. And I do have grounding mats in my house. But way before that, when I started reading these books, she talked about how you could get grounded by being in nature. And she talks about how air can represent the lifting of burdens. And it reminds me of when I go for walks at the end of the day and there's a big gust of wind. I imagine how it just takes all of the junk that has happened during the day and it just moves it on out. So there's a few ways that you can use the book. You can read it one day for the year. You can intuitively turn to a page for guidance, or you could just integrate some of these practices gradually in your daily routine. And you see, I like to keep a journal on what is actually working. And there are seasons in my life where there's relationships that sometimes they're great and sometimes they're kind of squirrely. And I have the tools for that. And I always keep coming back to that. All right. So the next reason I love this book is that it doesn't just offer theories. Now, I love my books and the theories, but she gives actionable steps. And it's not just a theory. You can actually use some of these practices. You can use these practices in your daily life. She reminds you about meditation and different types of meditation, how to set up, for example, your own personal space, because we all need that. Whether you're sensitive or not, I feel like we all need our personal space. Another example I love is the language that you can use to set boundaries, set really smart, loving boundaries. And one of my favorite examples, and I'll talk about this in other videos, but how to turn down the volume of your sensitivity, which that really lit my brain up, I promise you. So if you're feeling too overwhelmed and overstimulated, That's a really good one as well. How to turn down the volume of your sensitivity. So from setting boundaries to energy balancing exercises, you'll find tons of practical tools that you can just use every day. And they're not hard. They're kind of like, oh, I probably should have thought of that. All right. So the next reason that I love this book is that she gives real life stories and case studies. So I talked about, like, it's not just theories. What I love and how my brain works, like, don't give me verbal instructions. Do not give me verbal directions because I'm going to tune you out. She gives a story. Now, my antennas perk up if there's a story involved. And if you're like me, if you hear a story of someone that you can relate to, the information is a lot easier to grasp. So you can feel a sense of connection and understanding, knowing that you're not alone. You're not alone. A lot of people really feel this way. And it's not, and it varies. Some people are like super, super sensitive, and some people are just learning about their sensitivity. And I think for me, knowing that I wasn't alone and it wasn't just me made me feel a lot better. And then I just got super curious and I went down all the rabbit holes on this. So the next reason I love this book, she teaches so much about managing relationships. We all have relationships. We're not getting out of this one. Managing relationships can be so challenging for empaths and people who are sensitive. Again, I talked about it earlier, but if you are always told like, oh, you're so sensitive, you cry too easy, or you get your feelings hurt. I'm like, yeah, I do. I get my feelings hurt. So no mean comments. Okay, I'm just kidding. She talks about common issues with, and I think it's the top 3, partners, family that you live with or your family of origin, and work. Let's not forget about the work situation. Maybe you've got a boss that's like, not sensitive. They don't understand. I'll give an example. Like, my husband's an engineer. I'm a Reiki Master, a yoga teacher, and I teach meditation. And I'm a coach for sensitive people. He has no idea what I'm talking about. He's an engineer, and all he cares about is, does it work, or does it not work? And if it doesn't work, let's fix it. So we're we communicate a little bit differently, but she talks about how to bridge that gap with people who are really sensitive and people who are not sensitive. And I mean, that's just how the world is made up. And what I love about the book is that she gives tips for people who are not sensitive, who are open to it or willing to look into it. She helps them try to understand what it's like to be sensitive. Does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. And she gives other practical tips on relationships, like how to deal with chronic talkers or people that are really addicted to drama. One of my favorite topics that she talks about, and I'll teach this in one of the videos, is how to build tolerance in challenging relationships. That really sparked my interest, and I will talk about that. She talks about how to mix vulnerability with strength in relationships, like how to be vulnerable and how to be strong, creating those healthy boundaries. So she gives you so many valuable insights and solutions on maintaining healthy relationships and not pushing down your sensitivity. So if you're on a journey of self-growth or personal development, this book is a must read, especially if you're a sensitive person or if you know someone or close to somebody who's sensitive. It's an amazing book. Also, have you read it? Do you have that book? So I'm going to be diving more into insights on empaths. So please let me know in the comments if something sparked your interest. I could talk about this stuff all day long. I'd be delighted to create more videos for you on how to manage your life as a sensitive person and learn to thrive as an empath, like this book says. And one more thing. I'm in the middle of reading Dr. Judith Orloff's latest book, The Genius of Empathy. So I'll be doing a book review and I'm going to give you some tips that I'm learning from this wonderful teacher. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Please like this video if you like it. If you don't like it, don't like it. And check out my meditation videos. A lot of them are inspired by being an empathic person, being a sensitive person. I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel if you feel guided to do so, and hit the notification bell for more of this amazing content on personal growth and empowerment. I'm going to talk about intuition, empaths, and self-care practices, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.